Mr. Jones is an ordinary man, but he's rather a lucky one. His job takes him into the country occasionally, but most of his time is spent in town. He has the idea that the roads are quite safe in the country and that he can drive just as he likes. Well, he can't, but unfortunately there's no one to tell him so. Off he goes, foot hard down on the accelerator, looking forward to his day in the open. The sun is shining, there's a sharp nip in the air, and he ought to have a really pleasant drive. Poor Mr. Jones. And poor Miss Smith. She thinks she needn't take care in the country either. Look out, Miss Smith. Yes, a close thing, wasn't it? But don't look so indignant. It was your fault just as much as his. Now steady, Mr. Jones. You didn't expect that car, did you? Miss Smith was a bit scared. Maybe she'll be more careful next time, but not Mr. Jones. You're going a bit too fast for a hill like this, Mr. Jones. There's always a chance of meeting a horse and cart in the country. Well, this seems to be Mr. Jones' lucky day. He nearly had to pay for a new motorbike there. Or was Percy to blame for leaving his bike out in the road? There was nearly an accident anyway. But there's nothing accidental about Percy's reaction. This sort of racing and chasing is plain foolishness. It's often due to impatience or bad temper, and besides being dangerous, it shows a lack of consideration for other road users. The people who drive dangerously often get away with it, while innocent bystanders and careful drivers get hurt. It's nearly like that here. Two old ladies, who, by the way, ought to have known better than to cross even a country road from behind a stationary bus without looking, get quite a shock. But Mr. Jones and Percy don't even notice them. They're too intent on their own stupidity. Good morning, Mrs. Brown. It's not wise to let Johnny play in the road, is it? Glad you agree. It's not wise to let Mary ride her father's bike, either. Her feet don't reach the pedals properly, and that shopping basket on the handlebars isn't going to help her control. But perhaps you're saying to yourself that she's not likely to meet any other traffic on a country road. Perhaps Mary is imagining herself in an aeroplane or a swing at the fair. Left and right, left and right. Mary's not very old, Mrs. Brown, but she's old enough to know better than this. Are you still sure it's wise to let her ride her father's bike? Oh, here's Mary arriving at the village shop. And there's the local, Mr. Jones' car outside. We said there was a nip in the air this morning, and now there's a nip in Mr. Jones. But it would have been much safer to refuse that last one for the road, Mr. Jones, as a lot of people have found out to their cost. How dangerously overconfident a couple of drinks make you feel, don't they, Mr. Jones? But watch those parked lorries. And mind that bridge. The old bus seems to run smoother this afternoon. And why, here's Percy again. So you want to show him what a clever chap you are, Mr. Jones, and give him a bit of a fright. Well, you might have guessed that Percy would react to that sort of challenge, and now there's another stupid chase on. Mary's going uphill on her way home. She's off the saddle, you notice. Can she possibly have proper control of that bike? I wonder if she's concentrating and allowing for any odd thing happening. Now, see what happens when the odd thing turns up. Mary's off balance. That lorry's too close. She swerves once too often. It's no safer in the country than it is in town, Mary. You couldn't afford to fool about with a dog in busy traffic, could you? Don't do it here. No, it's no use losing your temper, lorry driver, now the damage is done. You should have slowed up or stopped when you saw Mary's bicycle was out of control. Fortunately, there's not much damage, but are you going to leave all that broken glass lying about? Why not stop slanging each other, have a bit of consideration for others, and clear it off the road? Morning, milkman. Mary didn't know you were going to call and went off to the dairy. And that's left her little brother Johnny with no one to look after him. He's having quite a game by himself. When his mother carried him into the safety of the garden earlier, she forgot to shut the gate properly. So he managed to get out again. After all, he's playing at cars. Cars use a road, so he wants to use a road. His little game might have had a very different ending, mightn't it, milkman? Have a look round your van next time, just in case. Kiddies play round stationary vehicles in the country as well as in the towns, you know. Better tell Mrs. Brown what Johnny was up to. Maybe she'll keep the gate shut then. No? Haven't got time, or did it not occur to you? Mr. Jones thinks he's giving Percy a run for his money, and Percy's determined that he's not going to be shown up. Percy obviously knows how to handle his machine, but at the moment he's concentrating not on his riding, but on chasing Mr. Jones. Fortunately for both of them, Mr. Jones has had enough racing and decides to let him pass. Why, look there. Percy actually gave a good hand signal before turning left. Well, goodbye, Percy. Don't chase anyone else, please, even if he does try to take a rise out of you. You could use the same advice, Mr. Jones, if you weren't convinced that it's perfectly safe to do silly things in the country. Why not stop to light that cigarette if you feel you must smoke? Did I hear you say that you've done this trick hundreds of times, and that anyway you're keeping your eyes on the road to see if anything's coming? But Mary broke a milk bottle here. And that was Mr. Jones' last view of the countryside. We aren't all like Mr. Jones and Percy. But even so, country roads have their own hazards. Sharp bends when you can't see far ahead. Cattle and ponies on the road. Humpback bridges with no view of the oncoming traffic. And narrow roads with no footpaths. All definitely not planned for high-speed motoring. In the country, concentration on driving and care and consideration by all road users for each other are more than ever necessary if accidents are to be avoided. So whether you walk, ride, or drive, remember Percy and Mr. Jones when you get a chance to take the country air.